Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And that recent shooting of two thugs who broke into a church and threatened people in that church has caused a whole new raft of discussion about the legality of shooting people who are threatening your life. And I think it's quite extraordinary and wrong that we're even having this discussion, but we are. So let's have it. Shooting a person who threatens your life seems like a clear-cut case, but legally it's never that simple. This past weekend, Peter van der Westhuizen, a former police officer and brother of late Springbok Joost, shot and killed two attackers when they stormed into the Quarantia Ministries Church in Veerder Park, Centurion, during service on Sunday, and proceeded to rob the congregants at gunpoint. During the robbery, Pastor Kobus Erasmus suffered a few blows to the head, and a teenage boy was grazed by some shrapnel after shots were fired by the attackers. Van der Westhuizen then drew his licensed firearm and shot two of the attackers dead, and possibly wounded a third who attempted to return fire before fleeing to a getaway car outside. According to Ulrich Roux, Van der Westhuizen's attorney, he has not been charged with any crime and is cooperating with the police. He's not been charged with any crime. Get it? Roux told News 24 on Monday, "I can't elaborate on all the detail, but at this stage it would appear that Van der Westhuizen acted in self-defense, not only to protect himself, but also to protect the other congregants." Well, that's self-evident, isn't it? He added that one of the three robbers had put a loaded firearm to the pastor's head, and that the shots were first fired by the robbers. Peter did what was necessary to ensure everybody's safety. The use of lethal force when acting in self-defense is often a complicated matter, says John Welch, an advocate and president of the South African Gun Owners Association, or SAGA. He said, "This legal position, however, is quite clear, but many people find it difficult to apply the law to the facts. Often you have to make a decision in a split second as to whether you are within the ambit of the law when you are trying to defend yourself or others. According to the law, there are two circumstances where one is entitled to use a firearm for self-defense. The first is a statutory provision, that is, when you attempt to arrest somebody as a citizen who has committed a crime in your presence, and that person either flees or violently resists arrest. A person who flees may still constitute a serious hazard towards society. For example, when the person continues shooting while escaping, then you may use force, including legal force, to stop that person. In terms of common law, self-defense, as we commonly refer to it, can be used when there is an attack on yourself or someone else. If that attack is of such violent nature, and the only way to stop the attack is to kill somebody, then you would be entitled to do that. Welch says if an attacker were to enter a building such as a restaurant or, in Van der Westhuizen's case, a church, and that attacker used assertive measures such as brandishing firearms, knives or pangas, for example, then you would be entitled to use force. He said, but the force that you then use must be concomitant with the attack. In other words, this is how crazy the system in South Africa is. What he's saying in effect is that, let's say the guy comes out with a butter knife and he's threatening people with a butter knife. That means that you can't shoot him, even though he's threatening people with a butter knife. You've got to come out with a butter knife and threaten him back with a butter knife. Where do you get your butter knife? God knows. But on the other hand, if this guy who's come in and broken into the house and he's got a gun and he's firing shots all over the place and threatening people, then you can shoot him. This is crazy. If someone breaks into your house, they should be put in a position where the people who live in that house can respond and shoot the bastard dead, because he's not supposed to be there. But the law is an ass, especially in South Africa. Anyway, let's continue with the story here. This means that if the attacker does not use lethal force, in other words, your life is not in danger, you will generally not be entitled to use lethal force. It's difficult to apply that to a real-life situation because these things often happen within split seconds. But assuming that there was a violent, unlawful attack on people, then one would be entitled to use lethal force to defend oneself. As I said before, if a robber comes into a situation where they're breaking into your house, take them out. They shouldn't be there. All this bullshit about, making sure that if they got a butter knife, you respond with a butter knife is bullshit. Clearly it's bullshit. Anyway, this is South African law. Walsh says, where there is a prima facie case evidence that someone has acted in self-defense, the matter has to be properly investigated by the police, and then the Director of Public Prosecutions, or DPP, should decide whether they exceeded the bounds of self-defense or acted outside the ambit of the law. That bullet goes at hundreds of miles per hour through the air. Here you've got someone who's breaking into your house, firing bullets all over the place. You're expected to think now, is this self-defense or am I acting outside the ambit of the law while you're being threatened by this sort of situation? This is BS. Those people shouldn't be in that house in the first place, or in that church or in that shop or wherever it might be. There should be absolutely no discussion about this at all. They were the guys who put other people's lives in danger. Anyway, let's continue. Walsh says, if the person is found to have acted in self-defense, the matter will come to a close. But, says Walsh, in many instances a case of murder is initially opened, even though the prima facie evidence points to the fact that you have acted in self-defense. You could still be arrested and prosecuted. That's where the law is an ass. Those people who broke into that house, that church, that shop, whatever it was, they were the ones who put lives at risk, and they should be taken out. No questions asked. That's my point of view, and I'm allowed to put it forward. Anyway, he continues to say, this is Walsh, if you're arrested and charged, you may file a bail application at your first court appearance, where your lawyer will make representations if he or she believes that you acted in lawful self-defense. If the DPP is satisfied with the evidence, you will not be prosecuted. However, should the DPP decide to prosecute, then the courts will make a decision on whether or not you should be acquitted. Now, these are the times you may use lethal force legally. The attack was already in process, or it was imminent. The attack was unlawful. You were protecting your life, your physical well-being, property, personal freedom, your dignity or sexual integrity, provided that your life was under threat. The act of self-defense was necessary to prevent the attack from escalating. Your act of self-defense was directed only towards the attacker. You didn't have any time to resort to a different, less violent form of protecting yourself and your interests. Now, you got to say, wow, look at America. Someone comes into your home in America, and they've got nothing, they've got no knives, they've got nothing, they just come in and they break in and they're going to cause trouble. You have every right in America to shoot the bastard dead. No questions asked. They're invading your property. That's how it should be. They've entered into, they're trespassing in, they are actually committing a crime. You have the right to take them out. That's your property. That's my perspective on the whole thing. Anyway, let's continue. Shooting someone before they've done anything to threaten you is regarded as illegal. Being scared is not enough reason to act in lethal self-defense. That's where I differ, because if someone's in your house, that automatically is a compromise to your safety. Recently, News 24 reported on 2 incidents where fathers shot and killed their sons without first establishing whether there was any threat to their own lives. Sibusiso Emmanuel Chabalala shot and killed his son Leander, 16, at Fred Norman Secondary School in Annandale, southern Johannesburg, on the 5th of June 2018, believing he was a hijacker. Chabalala was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which was suspended for 5. Kurt Kruger shot and killed his son, who he thought was a burglar. In March last year, Kruger received a sentence of 8 years in prison, suspended for 5. Welch said, anyone carrying a firearm for self-protection must have had the best possible training aimed at empowering one to be psychologically and physically prepared to face and deal with life-threatening situations. He concluded by saying, since the use of force during a violent confrontation requires split-second decision-making, there is usually insufficient time to ponder all possibilities and alternatives and legal and other consequences. One, therefore, must have considered all these issues prior to taking up arms, because when the high-risk situations arise, one needs to focus thereon only, nothing else. It is a matter of life or death, yours or the criminal's. Well, you know my point of view, guys. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, please stay safe. Bye for now.